Welcome to the Inspired by Jacqueline podcast, a refreshing place for women struggling with entrepreneurship, faith, or infertility. Stay tuned for today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode of Inspired by Jacqueline. I am excited. I can't wait for you to tune into this conversation. This episode is going to be just amazing. I'm truly blessed that I have this special guest. She has a little bit to share about all three pillars. All right. So I'm just going to leave it at that. She is amazing. I connected with her at an event and I just couldn't wait to just ask her. And here we are with today's episode. So Dr. Trisha Zehrung, after experiencing her own fertility struggle, she decided to change the traditional fertility narrative and help busy couples optimize their fertility and fast track their path to parenthood through natural and holistic solutions. Dr. Trisha is a nurse practitioner and fertility consultant with 12 plus years of clinical experience. I wish I knew her beforehand. Oh my goodness. Dr. Trisha has also presented at conferences and is a published author in numerous journals, including Nurse Educator. Welcome, Trisha.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacqueline.
Yes, and did I butcher your last name?
No, you said it beautifully. And honestly, it's my husband's fault. It's his last name, not mine. I never claim. I'm like, ugh, it's his fault.
Well, just tell him I added the Latin accent to it, so it's like
It's beautiful. It's better with a Latin accent. I think honestly, it used to be like from whatever origin it is. I honestly don't remember, but I think they changed it from like Zehrung to Zerung. So like, technically either way is probably fine, but we say it Zerung, I guess, in this house, like Z and ring rang rung. That's how I say to people.
awesome. So let's start with, how do you start your morning?
The way that I start my morning is, look, I got it all right here. I start my morning with this beautiful Bible. And sometimes this one, actually, I've got two. This is like more of like a study Bible, so a little deeper. And this lovely Abide journal. Every morning, unless I work out first. Most mornings I do actually work out first because if I sit on the couch, like I probably won't get back, like I won't want to get up and work out. So work out, and then I very quickly get to my Bible time before everyone in my household wakes up. I didn't always do that, but very consistently, probably for the past year now, I prioritize my time with the Lord just because I've seen the fruits of that play out in my life.
You mentioned your private time with the Lord. How long has that been a part of your journey? Because I know that when I first started that journey, it was different at different times, right? So I started with the Bible and then it started with a journal and then the Bible. So it's so interesting how things change, but it's still having that moment with God that is so important.
Yeah, I think for me, like, at first, when I started realizing, like nurturing my faith and knowing that like going to church on Sunday wasn't enough, like I needed more. And I didn't want to just learn what I learned on Sunday and forget about it Monday through Saturday, right? Especially with kiddos under my care. Like I knew I needed to be better and always seeking the Lord's wisdom and discernment. And so initially it started as like I would get into his word whenever I like had time. Like I didn't have a set scheduled time, but like I don't function very well that, things happen, life happens, and we get busy. And so it wasn't consistent. I was doing it, but it wasn't consistent. Then I think it transformed into this like, okay, I know I need this very specific, I need to set a time aside. And so then that became like more of the morning time because it's typically the only time where there was at least a little semblance of quietness. And oftentimes my kids came and were a part of that because they were up early or whatever, but I didn't let that pull me from the routine. But it still was a little bit more of like a checked box, right? I was reading what I was assigned to read that day in a scripture, or maybe I was doing like I'd done a lot of devotionals in the past, but it was like this like small like thing blurb and then like one verse. And I'm like, okay, I'm really not diving into what God is saying to me. I'm reading what someone else is telling me about this one little verse, which is valuable, but not as much as I could really be getting out of this, right? It was kind of like, okay, check, great. That was like really heartwarming and great, but like it wasn't like challenging me in a way to like get into God's word and like really hone in on what he was trying to speak to me through his word. And so then that's when I got started with the journaling a little bit more of like, okay, I'm going to see like what I can figure out on my own and what I draw from this, and then bring in like other people's endpoints, like theological standpoints and things like that. And then it's when I really started to like, there was this fear around like, what if I like don't get anything out of it? Like, what if I read this because it's like, so old, like I can't understand what they're trying to say to me. But the more I did it, the more it was like, oh, like I'm pulling this, but like somebody else maybe pulled something different, but like what I pulled was like really valuable what he was speaking to me. And so the more I allowed that to like happen and like pull back from studies and things like that, the more I was able to hear the Lord speaking directly to me and what I was going through, or to me for my clients. And so then I've realized now the more thirsty it makes me, like I just want more of that living water, the more and more that I really am truly like, it's not a checked box anymore. It's like a necessity.
And how do you feel when you hear his voice and you see that by being obedient to his word that you're getting all of these signs? Okay, I heard you.
Well, I think it's like, this is a weird analogy. It just kind of popped in my brain and I get weird analogies sometimes. So take it or leave it. It may make sense. It may not. But I feel like when we're not Christians, right, it talks about there's a veil over the eyes, like we can't see. But I think sometimes even like there's layers of that veil that we have to continually like peel back. And so like if we're like kind of in God's word, but we're kind of not, like it's still a little bit opaque. But once you like completely pull back all the layers, I feel like you can just so easily see the way God has his hand on your life and in each little moment. And like for me, this past year, even more, it's been like the word has been providence over and over and over. Providence, providence. Because I think that so easily in life, we play things off as a coincidence. And the more you realize as a Christian and a follower of Jesus, they're not coincidences, and we're stealing the credit from God by calling it that. It's his hand and it's his providence, and it's him making these divine appointments in our life. And I think they were happening sometimes. And the more we lean into him, the more they're going to happen because the more he's going to align them and we're going to follow like the path that he wants us to actually follow. But it's also so much easier to see literally from a moment to moment standpoint, like how involved he is in our day-to-day lives and how much he truly cares. And that just trickles into everything else. It takes the pressure off of our shoulders as entrepreneurs and business women because we're not trying to always do it in our own strength, which is literally a moment to moment surrender battle. But it makes it easier each time we have those struggles, and like it makes it easier for me to not feel like everything is weighing on me. In a fertility journey, it makes it easier for you to know like, okay, like Lord, I know that there's pieces of this that I will never be able to control, and I'm okay with that because I can see the way you're moving and I know that you have a good plan for me. So there's just so many layers that it like trickles off into as well.
Well, it wasn't a weird analogy because I completely got it. And that's where I'm at right now, where I've pulled many of those layers off and I feel like I'm in that clarity mode of just seeing, like you said, it wasn't a coincidence. It was so well put together based
Mhm.
on those steps and those journeys. So it's like when you shared that, I was like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, even for us to be in the same room and to have such aligned vision on certain things, and like for you to have your story and for me to do what I do, like wasn't a coincidence.
And since I started this podcast, he's literally connected me with people intentionally. And this year, my word is obedience. You mentioned fertility. When did you first become aware that you had a challenge with your fertility journey?
Yeah, so for me, For me, it was so I had become a nurse practitioner. I had been an RN in the ICU for years, lots of stress, very high stress job. Went back for my nurse practitioner degree, became a nurse practitioner, met my husband, and then we got married. And shortly thereafter, we were like very ready to have a family. And had a miscarriage. I got pregnant right away, but we had a miscarriage. And it wasn't even on my like radar that was going to happen even as a practitioner, like wasn't something I really even learned about in school, maybe briefly. So, and I didn't know anybody who had had a pregnancy loss. And so then I was at work when it happened and I worked through it because I was like, well, is it really like, what do I need to do? Like, I had no idea. And so that was the first moment where I was like, I felt like really alone when it came to like the medical system and experiencing it. And of course, I went and they were actually fairly like, they were a little comforting, but like, hey, this happens. It's actually pretty normal. And that was pretty much all I got. And, for me as a believer, I was like, the Lord is protecting me from bringing a child into this world that had a disability that was incompatible with life. Like there was protection there and I could feel that. But then we got pregnant again and we had a healthy baby. And then we tried again and we had two back-to-back miscarriages. And so that was kind of when I was like, we were living in another country. My husband was gone a lot. He was kind of there long enough to get me pregnant, but then had to leave again right after. It was kind of ironic how it all like happened, but I was alone trying to go through this. And like one of the times I was actually home visiting my family when we'd found out we were pregnant. We came back to the States to visit family, my family personally. And then Taylor had to leave, my husband. And when I started experiencing that loss after he left, like my family was horrible. They were like, well, you shouldn't have had another baby so close together. Like they just like the things that they were saying that was trying, like I think the attempt of being like comforting was like so not comforting, like it was horrible. And that's all I like was surrounded by them. Like I was just stuck there. And then the medical teams, there wasn't much guidance there either. And it was just like, well, it's just a fluke. Okay, well, no, at this point, like it's not just a fluke. Something more is going on. And so I'd already been a little bit into functional medicine and more like lifestyle driven medicine because I've needed to like store my body well through nutrition because of some other things that had happened in the past and weight gain and things like that. So I was kind of already on that more holistic path. And so that really is when God started putting the dream on my heart of like, I gotta help women not feel so alone in this space. Like if I don't know exactly what that looks like, but like I don't want any woman to feel the way that I feel right now. And I'm a medical professional.
Mhm.
I can't even imagine walking through it and having no clue and no way to like advocate for yourself. So that was really like when that started like coming to life, of course, but I was a nurse practitioner and I'm like, I don't know, the first thing about starting a business, right? Like that fear crept in for a while until I finally jumped out of that. And then I ended up experiencing another loss after that. And so all of those experiences is what really started my struggle with fertility and my like search for answers and trying to figure out how I could steward my body well to heal it. I didn't in all of those moments lean on the Lord the way that I should have too. And I learned that lesson because once I did, things became a lot easier. And all of those things were lessons that now I get to help other women learn.
And I'm glad you shared that because, like, during my journey, which lasted for 10 years, and the diagnosis was unknown infertility, and no matter what test, it was like always unknown. So that small percentage of being an unknown was frustrating. Yes, I was trusting God. I was really on the path of prayer and everything, full devotion. But at the end of the day, I was alone with not having conversations with someone who understood what I was going through. And so that battle was like back and forth, which led me into what I call a deep black hole. At the end of the day, that 10 years, the Lord was the only one who actually saved my life because that's where I was. I was really second guessing my life as a woman. And
Mhm.
because, I was born and raised with knowing that you get married, you have babies. And here is my story. And I'm like, wait a minute, like what's going on? No one in my family knew. And I went through similar things, what you shared in reference to communications, and people meant well, but it's how you say it and how it comes out, kind of a little different. And
Yeah.
especially taking into account the emotional side of people not understanding that emotional sensitivity, that anything can spark of that emotion. And so at the end, it was for me just really fully being submersive in God. And he saved my life because the emotion got so, so deep that it was just him alone that allowed me to say, okay, Lord, the end result was let me focus on me first. Let me understand myself. Let me get back to who Jacqueline is so that then you can show me. And at the end of the day, I didn't have children and I was okay with it because he gave me peace. And he showed me something else, which along the years, he showed me the purpose. He's like, you're a mother in a whole different sense. So it's just a different way of seeing what motherhood is. And for me, it was how I was a mother figure in that way.
Yeah, and it's, there's so many things, facets there, and I have that conversation daily of like, I can't guarantee pregnancy because I can't guarantee a baby. That is all on God. But what I can do is help you steward your health well in the way that He wanted you to, and dig deeper because traditional medicine, I truly believe, is under the attack of the enemy when it comes to the way insurance controls things, the way infertility isn't even considered that like what if you have diabetes, that mostly like yes, I know there's issues with coverage there too, but like to some extent it's covered. Infertility is the only like diagnosis you get where it's just like, well, you're on your own, you need to spend all this money if you want to have a baby. And it's a huge $1 billion process of that people are making money off of, but like we're doing like 5 tests to give a people a labeled unexplained infertility diagnosis and pushing them towards these expensive treatments. And we're not even looking at their actual underlying health that we know contributes. Research shows us it contributes to for infertility. And because God made us that way, because God made our bodies to procreate when we feel safe and not procreate when we don't feel safe. And, sometimes for that, it's just a shift that needs to happen because people aren't getting those answers. They're just being pushed into fear mongered into other options and not trusting in God. They're now trusting in like a medical system that's continually failing them. And so, where I come in is really to help store the body well, look at the underlying root causes of things, and really just really taking care of our overall health and taking care of you, just like you said, Jacqueline, like focusing on your health and how you are doing body, mind, spirit, right? All of it, the whole piece. And that maybe leads to a baby. We pray boldly and expectantly that it does. And if it doesn't, we know that the Lord still has a really great plan for you and a purpose for you that looks just differently than you thought it was going to look. And at one time I said something similarly of like being a mother doesn't look the same for everybody. And someone kind of like scolded me a little bit on social media trying to say like I was trying to change the definition of motherhood. And I'm like, no, I'm not going woke over here. Like I'm not trying, like I know what a mother is, but like we call Mother Teresa a mother, but like she's
Exactly.
not a mother, but she was a mother to many because of the way that she led people to the Lord. And like some people don't have the opportunity to meet their biological mother, but they have their, mother in faith. And so it's different for everybody.
Yes, it is. Yes, and that's where the point that I got, which was redefining, and that's the word that I was looking for, redefining motherhood. Because motherhood is basically like God just showed me. And it was confirmation after confirmation. You make me feel, and it was just more and more. And I was like, oh God, I see where you're going with that. It's like, and to this day, that's one of my purposes. And I was able to understand the why and the how. So yeah, that is truly amazing. And I love how you were able to then advocate, which is where I am right now. One, with this podcast, two, with partnering with Resolve to see how I can help Advocacy Day, and also creating a journal. And there's just different things that I'm trying to advocate because my journey was 30 years ago. There's still the same conversations. I was like, what? I was like, I thought we would be so far ahead with technology and everything. And it's still an issue, especially now more so with insurance. Now it's like a game. I'm like, wow, how can this happen and not taking into account the emotions that this is affecting people?
Yeah, well, I think we're so concerned as a society with the worldly control of infertility and how do we control it from the world standards and how do we, unfortunately, I'll say it, profit off of it. And that has been the focus of like that technology. The focus hasn't necessarily been on how do we figure out why. Let's look at why so many more women and couples are struggling with infertility. And it is happening. I don't want to say it's not, it is, but it's not still being taught in traditional medical model. And it's completely overlooked that the food that we put in our body from any disease aspect makes a difference. Like I wasn't taught in traditional medicine that the food I put in my body is like what is gonna affect my health later in life. Like no one, like we're not learning that. We're learning what pill fixes what and then what pill counteracts the effect of that pill. And all of that is being controlled by all these worldly perspectives, but we're not looking at it from a point of like, what is going on that in our world that is contributing to the exponential rise in infertility because we know it is going up and up and up and it's
Oh
only
yeah.
getting
That's
worse.
I'm having so many conversations with people like, wait, I went through that. I am happy that you have created a platform to help and to advocate. And that's one of the things when there's advocacy, the prayer for me is to keep growing and helping others because there's so much need for people to feel like they're being heard and feel like they're getting guidance or resources that are appropriate for what they're looking for. So, with that, can you share a little bit about what business you created to help those who are going through this journey?
Yeah, I think that, like you were saying, there's just like, there needs to be just such a shift in like, okay, what can we do to advocate for ourselves? What can we do to help move things forward? And it really does all come back to overall health. But, it's kind of like Jesus talks in the Bible, like, it's a narrow path, right? It's not the path of least resistance when you take the path that I help couples with. It's work. We have to steward our bodies well. We have to look at the worldly pressure we're putting on ourselves and decide we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to pull some of it off. So we really do the deep work together of diving into your underlying issues from a medical standpoint. Like there's a big component to the gut health. I see it time and time again. And, God literally made our guts as like the powerhouse of like our whole body. Like we thrive with bacteria to like make our bodies thrive. It's insane when like the behind the scenes of it all. But there's so much in this world that destroys that gut microbiome, which then causes underlying inflammation in our body. So, from the medical standpoint, we dig deeper into the root cause of what's going on, which traditional medicine completely ignores. But I find answers there regularly as to why couples are struggling. And obviously, not just the woman, the man too. Takes two to tango. And that's starting to come to light a lot more as well. So, I love that. And then we really hone in on how to walk that out and improve our overall health. And, the discussions of these things didn't happen overnight, so they're not going to be fixed overnight, but walk this journey. God gave us these tools of nutrition and lifestyle and herbs and all, nervous system regulate ways to regulate our nervous system to heal our bodies, to make our bodies feel safe again, to prioritize procreation. Also, the power of prayer is
Mhm.
not to be underestimated there. And so it's a totally different approach than what traditional medicine is taking because not only are we like we're leading with faith, but and the tools God has given us from a scientific background to heal our bodies and bring your body into a safe place. So again, like I said, I'd say all day, I can't guarantee anybody a baby, but I can guarantee you pretty much that you will feel better because you're going to be stewarding your body well. You're going to know exactly how to take care of your body. You're going to be making your body feel safe to be in a place of procreation. And at the end of the day, when you start to control those pieces that like God gives us control over, then it's so much easier to let go of the things that we can't control and give them to God. It's when we feel like we are literally in control of nothing and we're not getting any answers and we're just being told like we have to do this $30,000 treatment or that we are just have this death sentence spoken over our fertility of you will never have kids. How, if you're being told that by your provider, like you start to believe it, right? And so my goal is to just disperse that lie, get rid of it, and lean into what like you don't have to trust anything else but God,
Mhm.
because God does miracles every day. And we don't know if he will, but we know he can.
Mhm.
And so we lean into that a lot in my programs as well. So just
Mhm.
trying to lead couples through this journey to feel empowered, to feel like they're getting answers, to feel like they are doing their piece. The story of like the man who, I need to get this story down, but like, I've heard it before, the guy who's like praying for help and he's like standing on the roof or whatever, or like there's floods coming or something, I don't know. And like a helicopter comes and a boat comes, like all these things come to like save, and he's like, no, no, God's got me. And like
Just waiting. I'm just
he
waiting. Yeah.
dies and he gets to heaven and he's like, why didn't you save me? He's like, I did. I sent you like all
I
these things.
sent you like a million things
No, and I think it's such, a good reminder that God doesn't always like save us in the way that like
that
you
we
think
want.
he's just gonna like pluck you out of the problem. Sometimes he wants us to change and be sharpened by this experience and learn things. And, the unexplained infertility or PCOS or endometriosis or none of those things, those aren't just a getting pregnant problem. They're a long-term health consequence problem. And so traditional medicine says just take birth control or you can't get pregnant, just do IVF. None of that actually fixes it. So what if the Lord's trying to lead you to like healing your body, not just for a baby, but for the long term so that you can be around for that baby? And also to be like, only God, only God.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I love how you shared that because that's the at the end of the day, that's the reality is, you have to take care of yourself first so that you can see all of what God has in your pocket ahead, right? In the journey ahead. And so with that, so you offer coaching and does anything that you offer have tests and reviews of tests and things like that?
Yeah, so I offer a few different ways to work together. So we have our 5 month program that is pretty high level. We're working together. We're seeing each other every 2 weeks for that entire 5 months, me and my team. We're doing the testing initially. We do a GI map. We do a lot of functional serum testing as well, really diving deeper into much past the surface of what you've had in your normal testing. And then we walk the plan out together for the next 5 months. And so, an unlimited messaging access, like I'm like your fertility BFF, your expert in the back pocket. So you never feel like you're walking this journey alone or you're like calling your doctor's office and like they're like, yeah, we'll give you the nurse. And then like 10 days later, someone messages you
Exactly.
back. And then 10 days after that, you finally get an answer. Or you've got to wait 5 months for another appointment or that doesn't exist here. It's really like I want to be that person that is there for you throughout this whole journey, holding your hand, that one constant that you can truly rely on besides the Lord. Like I'm pointing you back to the Lord because he is the one constant, but I want to be that earthly peace, right? That always points back to
Like that
him.
I didn't have, right?
Yeah, and so we have our 5 month program. Then we also have all the same lab testing, but I call it my fertility snapshot, where we're just in a smaller container together. It's a little bit lower investment, but you're still able to get answers, a clear, actionable plan. And then you have the option to walk it out with me in my membership, which is a month-to-month membership where we still, it's not as high level as meeting every 2 weeks, but we still can meet once a month. We have unlimited messaging access. We have group calls because community is so important. The enemy wants you to stay quiet and alone on this journey. I have so many women that are so resistant to being in a group But when they finally do, they feel the power from that because you just don't know what if your divine appointments are in there. One woman went through something very similar to you, and then she gives you that wisdom that she gained, and that's what gets you pregnant. You know what I mean? So there's so much value to being in a community. So we have a community as well. All of it is very faith-based and minded. Everything I do is rooted in Jesus and his healing power above all else. So different paths for everybody. I even now just started allowing people into my membership without doing the one-on-one because some women just really need like they need to feel a little safer with the month-to-month option first before they decide they want to go into that like further testing piece. Or maybe they just don't need that further testing piece. They really just need the community and they need that ability to ask that, a fertility expert the questions when they need to answer them. So I've allowed that to be an option. And then I also have a self-paced program that people can like, if you're like, I just like need to learn the foundations, I'm good with doing it on my own. Most of us are not that, and myself included. So majority of us really like that hand holding. But if you're somebody you're like, I got this, I just need to know the information, I have that option out there too. And everyone who's completed my course in its entirety, 100% as of right now, have become pregnant. So that's great.
God. And so with all of this, because I know that you went through your journey and it was an emotional one, and then, you asking God, I'm sure, for balance and grace as you help others, right? Because that's another emotional piece to it on your end. So with that said, how do you take care of your mental well-being so that you can continue to be present for others?
Yeah, well, that is such an important piece that, God taught me very early on in my business when I started it, my first client, it felt like we did everything right. We found a lot of answers for her. She did everything right and she still wasn't pregnant. And I learned very quickly, like, yeah, Lord, this is not on me. I can't wear that pressure because if I wear that pressure, I'm going to be worn down and my mental health is not going to be in place. So I always have to give that to you, God. And I was so grateful for that lesson early on because my client, despite not being pregnant at the time when we thought she is now, but she was still so appreciative. And that taught me such a valuable lesson early on in business that like there's certain outcomes that in this space that I'm in that I will never be able to control. All I can do is just show up daily and be the support for these people. And how do I do that? How do I show up day in and day out? Because it can be very heavy for me. I want this for these couples that I'm helping. I want this for everyone that I come into contact with. And so, how do I steward that without crushing myself and setting good businesswoman boundaries? And really, it starts with that morning. Like the way I start my mornings is how that starts. Because if I start my day off reading God's word and really hearing what he has for me, it allows me to take that with me for the rest of the day. And it takes that anxiety away. It takes that pressure away because I just know he will provide. If this is God's calling for me, he will provide. I need to do some work, of course. Like I have to, I was reading I'm doing like a prayer challenge right now, and it says like work like it depends on you, but pray like it depends on God. And so really I have to do the work, but like at the end of the day, there was like my most important role is to pray like it depends on him because it does. And anything that I'm trying to just do solely in my strength is not going to bode well. And so it's a daily reminder from a mental health standpoint of like, for me, I just need to practice what I preach essentially to these people. If I'm telling them to read the Bible and regulate their nervous system, I need to do that. If I'm telling them to put good, nourishing, nutrient-dense food in their body, I need to do that, which I do, and which is why I'm so passionate about teaching it. But I also need to show them all the pieces of like that it's balanced and that I'm not perfect and that I eat ice cream and I skip workout days and sometimes I don't get to read my Bible and that's okay because that's where God's grace comes.
And I'm sure that when you don't read your Bible, you still have a conversation with him.
Yes, it is continual
So,
conversation.
so
Sometimes
there's
it sounds
always a
like you have
way.
like a whining toddler,
And
but
it's like, okay, daughter, I hear you. So, for our listeners, those who were just recently diagnosed and are listening to this, like, what would be the one thing you would just tell them in reference to their emotional and mental well-being?
the first thing I would say is that you are not your diagnosis of whatever, that it doesn't define you. God defines you, and He has the final say. So if it doesn't sit well with you that you've come to this, just someone else has come to this decision with not very much information, that you have this unexplained infertility, or you have PCOS, and you have endometriosis, or male factor infertility, and you're being told like, sorry, that's just is what it is, and there's nothing you can do. That's a lie from the enemy. There are tools that God has given us that you can do to help improve your health and improve your fertility. Does it mean it will end in a baby? No, not necessarily. Could it? Absolutely yes, because God can do it. And oftentimes He will do it. And if He doesn't do it, He will show us why eventually. But you can sit in this place of discomfort and sorrow and despair and hopelessness of a diagnosis that's been just spoken over you flippantly, or you can see what your God can do.
And what are two key takeaways that you think you would share with the listeners based on what we've discussed today?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like flashiness on the internet and on social media as well of like, buy this magic fix, buy this magic fix, buy this magic fix. The foundations, most of them are free. I mean, food isn't free. We know that these days. But, there are ways for everybody to consume nourishing food for their body. There's ways, we know, like the Bible, you can get your hands on a Bible, like that's going to bring you peace. Like a lot of these things that we can do for our fertility are actually low cost or free, that you don't necessarily need a magic supplement. Obviously, I recommend supplements and we use them strategically, but like there's a lot of flashiness out there. So don't get distracted by the flashiness without implementing the foundations, drinking enough water, like those things. So really, if you haven't focused on those foundations, go back to the foundations. My Instagram is a really good place to find a lot of that information and kind of guidance and support and hope that you need. And I think another piece would just be never lose hope. Because if you are living in a place of hopelessness and you are, well, this is probably never going to happen for me, it probably won't. Because our mind is so powerful. And if we don't believe that God can do this, there's a difference between believing you can do it in your power versus believing God can do it in His power.
Mm.
So I think another one that I would say is just like, don't, like, you can momentarily be there. It's good to feel those feelings and you should speak them out to somebody, share them with your spouse, write them in a journal, whatever you need to do. Feel those feelings, because the enemy, if you keep them inside, will just stir them into this whole new level of stuff,
Testament to that.
right? Where you don't want to go. But then we're not living there. Feel it, great, got it. We all get there. We all feel that. You're not living there. You're coming out of it, and then you're going back to the truth of what God speaks about you, that you're not your diagnosis, that you do have hope in Him, and that He has great plans for you for your good and His glory.
You were talking, and there were just flashbacks of the journey and the loneliness. And like you said, you keep things bottled up, even though like I was praying and in submission to God, but still it was like that lonely place and struggle. And I started journaling, and that was helping me release a bit, which is why I kind of started my journal.
Yeah.
And I call it release because it has nothing to do with the tests you're taking or your appointments. It's to help people to either release or at least jot down those negative thoughts.
Yeah. And to be able to refocus on who they really are
Mm.
outside of the fertility struggle, because it can consume your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I've been there, I've led it.
Oh, yeah. So if you had a superpower, what would that be?
I mean, if I had a superpower, I would open everybody's wombs.
I love that.
It would be open. So for now, I just gotta
Like
pray.
God
That's
used me.
the true healer. Yes. That would be so, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trisha. And is there anything else you would like to add? Plus, if you can share how listeners can connect with you.
Yes, well, I'm just so honored to even be able to have this conversation with you. And we touched on literally everything, faith, business, and infertility. So, like, what a beautiful picture God has painted here. But if you are looking for support in this space, or even maybe you've been through the fertility struggle and you're looking to help other women in the space, now I'm doing more teaching others. That's the next step, the Lord is leading me into, is creating more people like me to reach
Mm.
the ends of the earth and have a greater impact for the kingdom. Find me on Instagram. This is the best place to find me. Get into my DMs. I usually message all my new followers anyway. So go follow me there. It's at Trisha Zehrung. So maybe you could put it
I'll have it in the show
note,
notes and
because
then
everybody will
on
be like,
Instagram.
"You
It'll be
what?"
everywhere.
Or you can obviously always visit my website at trishazrung.com. And I'm also available by email at trishaz@trishazrung.com. But Instagram is typically where I hang out and really try to give back to my community as much as possible. So definitely connect with me over there.
Thank you. And I definitely see why God connected us. And immediately when I think we were in that room, right? And we were doing a brief intro. And then when I got to you, I was like, oh, I gotta connect with her. And I think you had the same.
Mhm.
And I was like, I went right after we had our session, and I just after having this conversation, I was like, God, you're just so amazing. It's just a blessing to just be
He's just so, so good.
in his path and him to show us what he already knows.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so the community that he has built, and I am so honored just to have met you and to have this conversation and to be, in the same community path of God and everything with
Same. And God bless you for all the work that you're doing. And with Resolve, I want to hear all the details on all of that. That's just amazing, amazing, amazing work. And it is just a true testament to how the Lord has little different pieces to all of this for all of us and how
yeah,
it all fits
yeah.
together.
Yeah, and congratulations on your business and everything you're doing to advocate and help others. So, and for those who are interested in doing and learning more about what Trisha does and to see if they can be a part of it, please reach out to her. She's such an amazing being. So I'm really great that I did walk over to her and connect with her. This is amazing. And thank you, Trisha.
Thank you.
But everyone, thank you for being here, for tuning in. Please comment if you have any questions. Please reach out to Trisha, reach out to myself, and make sure to share, 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 and stay tuned for the next episode of Inspired by Jacqueline. Take care.